Hey, everybody, it's Congressman Jamie Raskin. I'm calling out to all my friends in Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District and around Maryland and across the country who are tuning in for my favorite time of the week, Local Hero, when we get to recognize and celebrate the people who make a life so wonderful in our community. And we are in the thick of the holiday season now. My local hero is Silver Spring downtown resident Ashley Domm, who is herself passionately immersed in the fight against hunger in our regional community. And she is the head of advancement and chief development officer of Bread for the City, which she's been doing for more than 5 years in Montgomery County. She and her family have been active with MANA and other anti-hunger groups, but she's been responsible for raising millions of dollars to put into food drives and clothing drives and the not-for-profit social infrastructure that takes care of so many people in our community. Recently, she worked on raising money to support 12,000 families at Thanksgiving with turkey and fresh produce and holiday groceries, but they ended up raising enough for 16,000 families, which is amazing. And she's involved in lots of activities in our community. With her son, she's involved with the local Cub Scouts, and I got to see them at the Thanksgiving Day parade, which was so awesome. And she does food drives with MANA and works also with a member of the Cantate Concert Choir, which sings out at Strathmore. So anyway, for all of these reasons, we've got a true local hero here. Thank you, Ashley Domm, and please accept our congratulations on being our local hero.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm just so excited to be able to talk a little bit about the work that we do in food insecurity in our region. So always happy for that to be spotlighted, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so tell us, like, what is the general picture today? I mean, how would you put it in some kind of historical and geographical context? Like, has it become more of a problem recently? And where is it centered?
So food insecurity in the greater metropolitan region that we're a part of here in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, in that DMV, it's actually increasing. So we look at reports that look at the state of hunger in DC. The Capital Area Food Bank puts out an annual report. All of the food pantries and food banks and people working on food insecurity in the district and in the greater DMV really rely on that report to have an understanding of what's going on in food insecurity. And according to that report in 2024, food insecurity actually increased to 37% across the DMV, across our greater region. And that includes where we live here in Montgomery County. And that equates to about 1.5 million people in our region who are food insecure. And that increased from 32% last year. So when we're looking at rising rates of food insecurity, those are the types of things that we're looking at. Where is it hitting the most? Which families is it hitting the most? Which neighborhoods? In DC, we have the highest rate of food insecurity among seniors. And so at Bread for the City, that's a real focus of ours. And for all of the groups and the organizations and individuals we work in coalition with, really looking out for our seniors. It's getting cold outside. It's the winter, it's the holidays, thinking about senior food insecurity is really top of mind for us right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it a problem that is disproportionately focused on the elderly population, or are we looking at families and kids too? Like, what should our image be of who is food insecure in our region?
Yeah, when we think about people who are food insecure, traditionally we think about families and individuals who are living on low income, living below the federal poverty line. A lot of our efforts are going to people who are living on low income. About 40% of households that are food insecure have children. When we compare that to houses that are food secure, households that are food secure, that's more around 20% of them have children. And so we're really looking at childhood food hunger as an epidemic and as an issue that we need to solve for. But a point that I'd like to put a finer point on, if you would, is that we do have that image that food insecurity is hitting folks who are living on low income, families that are living below the poverty line. But actually, the biggest growth in food insecurity in the last few years have been in what we call the median household income for families. And in our region, that's families that make anywhere between 120,000 and 150,000 a year in their households. And so traditionally, you might not think folks who are making median income are food insecure, but it's actually the biggest leaps in food insecurity in our region in recent years have been people living in the median
Yeah.
income bracket.
I
Mhm.
mean, I know that there were federal policies, of course, that we adopted to try to reduce child poverty and
Yes.
food insecurity. We actually cut child poverty in half with the child tax credit, but then that, of course, that lapsed and has not been reenacted in this Congress. And so child poverty is going back up again. Uh,
Exactly. We're big proponents of that exact child policy that had taken place. We saw during the pandemic, and it's exactly what you saw in Congress during the pandemic, that the will was there to change these policies. And it really showed us that we can reduce poverty if we make that choice as a society. We can especially reduce childhood poverty. There's a stronger political will to reduce childhood poverty, especially with things like the tax credit. We saw huge dips in food insecurity among households that had children during that time. And as you said, childhood poverty was able to really be solved for with those types of policies. So organizations like Bread for the City, organizations like Manna, when we go out and we feed the community, we're really filling those gaps until some of those more systemic solutions can come around.
yeah. So now I know your son has special needs.
Yes.
And you've also been very active in the education community and around special needs and so on. And I just wonder if you would reflect for a moment as a local hero about living a life where you are committed to meeting the needs of vulnerable populations. And what does that feel like to you?
That's a great question. My son has autism, and so I'm a very proud autism parent of my son and his special needs. We really see them as a strength and as an asset, and the very special way that he shows up in the world is something that I'm greatly supportive of. When we are talking about people who are living on low income, people here who are especially vulnerable in the district and in the DMV in the greater Washington metropolitan region, people who are living below that poverty line, people who especially need our services. There are also kids with special needs within those families. There are also families who especially need our support. We are extremely lucky that we have the privilege for my son Owen to be able to have the therapies and the supports that he needs. But everybody deserves equal access to that. So when we see who's disproportionately impacted by education issues or special needs issues, access to those resources, Bread for the City is also working to close those types of privilege gaps, those types of resource gaps. I am extremely privileged because, as you know, I live here in Montgomery County, which means my son benefits from the Montgomery County public school system. We have an amazing special education system here in Montgomery County. And so we're extremely lucky. And my advocacy is really focused on making sure all kids can have those same types of privileges, regardless of where you live, what your racial background is, what your income bracket is as well.
Well, your work has been central to our community resiliency and our ability to bounce back from very serious hits like COVID-19 and economic recessions and so on. What keeps you resilient, Ashley Domm? Like what gives you a sense of fortitude and perseverance to keep going?
I feel extremely blessed and privileged to be able to talk about my work as a local hero, but I'm really just a cheerleader, honestly, for the work that the staff at Bread for the City does. It's really the 120 staff members working at Bread for the City, seeing anywhere between 30,000 and 40,000 individuals and families living on low income in our region who are the real local heroes. If I could have all 120 of them kind of around me, you would see very visually exactly what gives me that fortitude or that ability to get up every day and raise another dollar turn another person towards the advocacy work that we're doing, raise awareness for what we're doing. It's really those folks on the front lines who are making sure everybody who comes through our door is not only fed, is able to see a social worker, is able to have free access to legal services, is able to come through our federally qualified health center, but is also treated with dignity and respect, is treated as the human beings that they are. And so when you see that every single day, when you get to sit where I sit and you see that every day, you really can't give up on that. You really still get up every day and make sure that you're supporting that work the best you can.
Well, that's Ashley Domm. Thank you for your great service and your advocacy, and your contribution to the well-being of our community through all of your anti-hunger work. And we are proud to recognize you as our local hero this week. And everybody, please call Ashley and tell her thanks for all of the great stuff she does for us.